Ladies and gentlemen, a new snapshot for Minecraft Java Edition 1.17, the Caves and Cliffs update has been released. Here is 21w11a, coming to you with lots of tweaks and new functionality for copper and some of the other new blocks introduced in previous snapshots, as well as a new way to generate performance reports and a boatload of bug fixes. My name is slicedlime. I'm here to guide you through all the changes in Minecraft 21w11a, and let's dive in, starting with gameplay and a very crucial fix. In the previous snapshot, the enchanting table didn't work at all. You can now enchant items again in this snapshot. Let's talk about the changes to copper. You can now wax copper directly by right-clicking while holding a honeycomb. Crafting a honeycomb with a copper block still also creates a waxed version, but you can now also do that immediately in the world. You can also use a dispenser to dispense wax onto copper block the same way. And if you want to take the wax off again, you can scrape it with an axe by right-clicking a waxed block with an axe. You can also use an axe to scrape off any oxidation that has already formed. That is also done by right-clicking. Another change to waxed copper is that in this version you can take a waxed copper block and uncraft that into 4 copper ingots. That's not all, however. A lightning strike hitting copper will now also clean its oxidation, and there are more changes to lightning rods. Lightning rods can now in this snapshot for the very first time be waterlogged, which has definitely never been claimed before. Also, lightning rods no longer spawn skeleton horses when hit by lightning, and when the lightning rod is hit by lightning and gets powered, there's now a visual distinction from its unpowered state. Let's talk about buckets. For a very long time, there's been a bug in the game where if you're turning or moving quickly when using a bucket, you sometimes get a desynced bucket in your inventory. That was often not apparent until later when you tried to use the bucket and it simply didn't work. That bug has been fixed in this version. And when filling a lava cauldron with lava, the lava got placed on the ground instead of in the cauldron, and the same goes for powder snow. That bug has been fixed in this snapshot. Let's talk about new changes and functionality for the lush caves blocked. The appropriate tool for moss is now a hoe rather than an axe. And there are new recipes for using moss instead of vines when crafting mossy versions of cobblestone and stone bricks. Cave vines can now be climbed and they slow you down just like other vines do. And the tip and the rest of the plant of cave vines used to emit different light levels when they had glowberries. Both types of blocks now emit full light when they have glowberries. It is now possible to bone meal rooted dirt that grows hanging roots underneath them. And another fix to hanging roots is that when you remove the block that they are hanging from, it will now pop off rather than floating in mid-air. Another block that has had this same fix applied to it is the spore blossom that will also no longer float in mid-air. Those aren't all changes to bone meal. Bone meal can now be used on drip leaf stems, not just the big drip leaf itself. And if you break a big drip leaf stem, then you will now get a big drip leaf drop in return. And if you break a leaf of a big drip leaf, then this no longer causes the entire plant to break all the way down. There's a change to small drip leaves as well. The small drip leaf blocks now have an orientation. The facing direction of the small drip leaf blocks is now determined by the direction that you are facing when you place it. More fixes for bone mealing. Bone meal could still be used on a glow lichen even when it was unable to grow any further. The bone meal would then simply vanish. That is fixed in this version. And speaking of glow lichen can now be composted. And there are a fix for azalea in this version as well. They can now be used as fuel in a furnace. Let's talk about crystals. Fully grown amethyst clusters will now drop 4 amethyst shards or even more if you have fortune when you mine it with a pickaxe. When you mine it without a pickaxe or when you break it in some other manner such as with a piston, you will now get 2 amethyst shards as a drop. And together with this, a bug fix where the amethyst crystal cluster would drop items when the block was moved with a piston, even when that didn't actually break the block. Fixes for tinted glass too. Tinted glass will no longer suffocate entities inside of it, and mobs can no longer spawn on top of tinted glass. Fix for the spyglass use statistic will now function properly. And speaking of statistics, another statistic that was broken was the fall 1 centimeter one that didn't update when you fell onto blocks if you were above 316 in height. Another thing that applied at this height was that you didn't take any fall damage, so if you fell onto a block at y equals 316, nothing happened. And finally, a couple of X-ray glitches have been fixed that you could get using enchanted items or the spyglass. Let's talk about changes to world generation. The cave sizes have been tweaked further, carved caves are now a little more common, and caves aren't as stretched out tall anymore, they are more equally sized in different directions. There are also fixes for noise caves, where cave ceilings and floors could sometimes be very flat or blocky, and the entrances to noise caves could be very cut off in terrain. They are now a little more natural looking. There's some feature changes too. Let's start with ore. The frequency of ore blobs for diamonds has been slightly increased by about 20%. When ores generate inside of tuff, they will now use the deep slate version rather than the stone version. Hanging roots could generate on top of other hanging roots, that is, they would generate in mid-air, that is fixed in this version. And more fixes have been done to the generation of lush caves. Lush caves could sometimes generate floating water in little pools, that is fixed in this version. And cave wines could generate above a surface with no supporting block above them, that is also fixed. And finally, for world generation, super flat worlds would sometimes have some layers of blocks generate at the entirely wrong height, that is also fixed in this version. Let's talk about visuals and rendering. In the previous snapshot we got a brand new render engine, and with it we got a slew of bugs, and tons of those bugs have now been fixed. But let's start with an older bug that probably many of you recognize. There were some false negatives during occlusion culling. What does that mean? Well, it means that in some cases the world would simply stop rendering, often in caves or holes that you're looking into. That is fixed in this version. A change to the visuals of hanging roots. They now render with a random offset, so they aren't as uniform anymore. A whole slew of textures have been updated. This includes a lot of fixes for things that were overlooked in the texture update a few versions back, but also some random things such as carved pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns creating what could be interpreted as a swastika when placed in a very particular configuration. There are also some fixes for some very minor bugs, like a floating pixel in the tail fin of Guardians and a Z-fighting issue for setting lecterns on fire. Hearts in hardcore mode now have a distinct look when they are frozen versus normal. And a big bug in the previous version, there was no water fog. That has been fixed in this version. And also, if you are inside of a block, you now once again see the block texture. A whole slew of bugs have been fixed with the world border that was rendered in the wrong colors, sometimes upside down and sometimes not at all, and a bunch of changes and fixes for spectators. Spectators can now properly see through lava and powdered snow, and there are more fixes for lava and powdered snow. You can no longer see entity hitboxes, debug hitboxes when you are inside of powder snow or lava, and the same goes for entity shadows. There's a bug with how the end portal and end gateway were rendered, which meant that as you moved further and further away from the portal, the textures expanded. Quite a few user interface bugs where things had stopped rendering properly. This included the progress bar when reloading resource packs, the backdrop for switching dimension, and the green nausea overlay. Some blocks rendered too dark when mip mapping was turned on, and banners were always fully lit. The red flash when a mob got hurt was slightly dimmed, and for shockers it didn't show at all. And the lighting of the player in the user interface for your inventory was not correct at all. Some blocks when moved by pistons, including slime blocks, honey blocks and other such translucent items, were fully lit as well. And the rendering of a bunch of the debug graphs and the chunk borders didn't work properly. The glowing effect now once again properly shows transparent pixels and renders in team colors. And the aura around the wither and charged creepers now once again work properly as well. The dying ender dragon was rendered too bright, that is fixed in this version, and a bunch of text related fixes have been done as well, including one in the end where selecting any text would cause the sky to get highlighted. Scroll bars were offset both in the chat screen and in the social interaction screen, and right-clicking to open the alternate recipe display in the recipe book didn't actually render the recipes, those are also fixed. Cast fishing lines are now attached to the rod properly, and they are once again affected by the fog from powder snow or lava. The spyglass overlay now renders properly even while you are freezing, and the Mojang logo screen no longer has several flashes from different colors. A number of fixes have been done to bugs that happened with fast graphics enabled, including several of the overlays in the game causing the screen to go entirely black. Finally, 2 white lines would appear when the Mojang loading screen was up, and at sunset a blue line would appear in the northern and southern skies. Those have also been fixed. Some fixes to sounds, or more specifically to subtitles. There is no subtitle message for the amethyst chime that is fixed in this version. There is a new subtitle for stripping bark that is axe strips instead of axe scrapes. Axe scrapes still exists though, that is now used for scraping off the copper oxidation. And there are new subtitles for waxing and unwaxing copper. They are wax on and wax off. And for our final section, let's talk about performance and stability. There is a new functionality in this version to generate performance metrics from the game and save those metrics to a file. That is activated by holding down F3 and pressing L. This generates a file in the debug folder under your Minecraft folder, and inside of that under a profiling folder. The file will be called the date and time of your activation followed by .zip and contains a bunch of diagnostic information. If you're having performance problems, it might be useful to take a look at this file, and especially if you're reporting any performance problems to the Minecraft issue tracker, then make sure to include that file. In addition to this, a number of fixes have been done to crash bugs, and more optimizations have also been done. And those were all the changes in this version. While you still can't open old worlds in the Snapshot series, keep in mind that snapshots are unstable, so if you're playing on a world that you care about on the snapshots, make sure to take regular backups. The game will prompt you to do so when you open the world. If you want to try this version out and you don't know how to, then click on the link in the iCard on the video right now, or in the video description. That'll take you to a tutorial video about how to get and play a Minecraft snapshot. And that was all I had for you this time. If you're interested in the technical changes in this version for things like commands, data packs, resource packs, particles, or custom world generation, then there is a video coming right after this of that as well, so keep an eye on the channel if you are interested in that. If you want to stay on top of all the changes in Minecraft Java Edition, then please subscribe to this channel. I make update videos for every new snapshot, pre-release, release candidate, or full release of the game. And make sure to hit the bell icon and select all so you get notified by YouTube when the videos are done. I hope you found this update video useful, and if you did, please help me out in return. Leave a like, share the video to a friend, or why not leave a comment down in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching. My name is slicedlime, and I will see you next time.